I'm approaching 2 years since this happened, April 16th, 2022, and trying not to get too in my head about things. Long story short, my wife had been having an affair for a few months. She came clean to me about it, and then she killed herself 3 days later. For background purposes, I am 25, and she was 3 years older than me. It has taken me 2 years, but I feel like I am starting to feel remotely normal ish again. Edit, thank you guys for all the input. I can't keep up with all the comments. I'll try to check some out in the morning. Thank you to everyone with kind words. I went through almost the same thing 20 years ago. She cheated, I caught her and finished it. I went back to the house to show a prospective buyer around and found her on the bed. Luckily, I just completed a first aid course and was able to bring her back. We had lots of intense conversations, but I stuck to my decision. I even helped her to move into her new house after we sold. I met my wife, had a son, and when my son was about 6 months old, I was out doing the weekly shop when we saw each other. She just stood there with tears in her eyes. She was found a week later, having taken our dogs to be euthanized and overdosing. I can still see the look in her eyes. I feel guilt. And although I love my life now, I still wonder if I'd made different choices or paid her more attention and spent less time at work.
I just want to thank and applaud you for your service as a volunteer for the suicide hotline. I went through a very dark time back in December, and my mind was on a constant loop of my plan. My daughter, Yeet, decided she wanted to come stay with me one day earlier than planned for Christmas break, and within minutes of her just getting here, she could sense something was off, and literally every minute kept asking if I was okay. Finally, something clicked in my brain that OMG, she knows I'm not okay. Which made me immediately reach out to my doctor, who got me in right away. And we came up with a plan, but since it was a 3-day weekend, she was concerned and gave me the phone number to the suicide hotline. And I called twice that weekend, and those people there are just incredible. They literally just listened and talked to me. And when I'd start to get back into my brain, being stuck on a loop, they would veer me off and bring up different topics to talk about. And just knowing the things I was telling the two people I spoke with, and for them to hear that, and what my plan was, and what led to me feeling that way, and how I know it's selfish. But seriously, if you have ever sunk so low to that point, nothing matters other than wanting to stop how you feel. I have always said IDK how people can do that. Or why don't they talk about it? Or blah, blah, blah. But honestly, for the people on the other end of the call to have the compassion and empathy and joy to actually want to help made all the difference in the world. So truly thank you for volunteering your time. I know you helped people when they needed it most. Because those two who answered my call were absolutely amazing when I just needed someone to talk to and not feel judged or criticized or bullied or yelled at or whatever the case. Sorry for all of that. There's often an underlying history of suicidal ideation or suicidality. But contrary to popular belief, impromptu suicides with no previous desire to die do happen. Think gambling addicts who just lost everything, or a man who was perfectly happy who loses his family and home. What else does he have? If the answer is nothing, he'll almost always either kill himself or give up on life and resort to substances or some other vice. In this case, I don't think your logic really works. Him finding out about the cheating changes things. Up until then, she was in a bubble. Then it got popped. It's also possible that the cheating was a result of underlying mental health problems. Could go either way is my point. I remember there was a post recently on some subreddit talking about how this girl's dad killed himself because he found out his wife was cheating for years. And people in the comments were trying to downplay the mom's responsibility for his death by saying people don't just kill themselves over one thing. Like, no. People will absolutely kill themselves if they lose everything. Or if their whole family and reality is torn apart by a betrayal of the deepest kind.
Sadly, it's true. I saw it happen with an old friend of mine. This person had just recently started a job at a dealership with fast, exotic cars. One night, he meets these two women and offers to take them on a joyride. In an effort to impress them and whatnot, he starts driving recklessly. That is speeding, swerving in and out of traffic, going around turns quickly, etc. You can probably guess what happens next. He ends up crashing and totaling the car, resulting in both women getting badly injured, with one in critical condition. They both survive, but the woman in critical condition is now permanently paralysed from the neck down. The dealership ultimately fires him and demands he pay back the amount the car was worth, $100 a year plus. Additionally, the women sue him for medical bills and pain and suffering, which was another several $100,000 he was on the hook for. He was completely broke at this point and had no way to pay back what he owed. All of this led him to feeling trapped and wrecked with guilt. He saw no other way out other than to take his own life. It was heartbreaking for everyone in his life because he was such a joyous and chill guy, with no previous suicidal tendencies. He was so young when it happened too, barely 22 years old.